Welcome back to the Waves Business Coaching Podcast. Here at Waves Business Coaching, we know that people are the most difficult, complicated, and time-consuming and expensive part of every business, and we help business leaders build the dream team their business needs so they can reclaim their time and freedom. This week on the podcast, I interview Andrew L. Anderson. He is author of Strength of the Oak, Strength of the Willow, great book that I have here, and I'd encourage you to get it as well. And we talk about a lot of stuff on the episode. We talk about the wheel of life. Andrew's coaching specializes in solving problems really that money can't solve, and he does a lot for transformation for his clients. We talk about his background, some of the issues his clients face, as well as we kind of do a live coaching session with myself, as well as how I can be a present dad and how that kind of overlaps into the business. Master Your First Job, the book I wrote, is the remarkable path from first day to first promotion. This is the book that every employee needs, especially young employees, and every employer wishes they had. I'd love to give you this book for free. You can go to masteryourfirstjob.com/free and get a free e-copy of Master Your First Job. That's masteryourfirstjob.com/free. Let's dive into my conversation with Andrew L. Anderson. Andrew, thanks so much for being on the Waves Business Coaching Podcast. I'd love for you to share a little bit about you and your story with our audience.
Absolutely. Where do you want me to start?
Man, start with, how about this? We're going to go to first job here in a second. So how about post first job, and we'll come back to first job. We'll do like a little Quentin Tarantino storytelling or something.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So post first job is I'm a little kid, man, because my first job, I was little. So
yeah.
I grew up in suburbia America, like typical middle class. I had a paper route. That's not my first job. Paper route, Boy Scouts, went to church on Sundays, played all the sports, I did all the things. I was just super blessed to have parents that loved me and 4 older siblings that loved me enough to torture me. And I grew up in the way that you'd want any American boy to grow up, if that's your dream.
I love it. And so talk to me then about what you do now, kind of like, I know what you do, but tell the audience what you do and kind of what got you into it.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's what I want you to think about, Jacob. Think about someone that doesn't have any problem making money, right? Business owner, entrepreneur, executive, like they know how to lead, they know how to create, they make really good money, and yet they have problems that money can't solve. And what are those problems, right? Relationship, family, it's their health, it's their spirituality. And no matter how much money they make and how successful they are here, what's going on at home is killing them. And that drive to continue to produce and lead and make money helps take care of the pain that they feel over here. And no matter how many coaches or counselors or therapists or their pastor or priest or retreats or books or podcasts, like all that stuff, it doesn't actually get to the root cause of what's preventing them from finding that sense of peace and just happiness. And what I do is I come in as a coach, a therapist, a friend, a mentor, or whatever you want to call me. Yes, I'm a coach, but I come in because Jacob says, you got to talk to Andrew. And it's always a referral. And we figure out how they got here. And we do deep work to help them remove the unconscious limiting beliefs and negative emotions that have become self-fulfilling prophecies for the trials that they're experiencing at home. So that's what I do. I help them find that sense of peace and start fresh and create a new life.
I love it. Now I want to come back to that. I wrote a book called Master Your First Job. I love asking people about kind of like their first work experience, which is fun. Andrew, what was your first job?
Yeah, so before the paper route and before the lawn mowing, there was my 4 older siblings. And because there's 5 kids, we each had a day of the week that we had to pick up dog poop. And so my 4 older siblings paid me as the little brother to take their day. And so I got $1 a week, 25 cents from each of them. So $1 a week to pick up dog poop. So I was doubled my income at the age of 5 or 6 years old because I was getting my allowance of $1 a week plus $1 from my siblings, and that's a great investment.
But, entrepreneur at a young age.
Yeah.
which you love to see. There's a story. I don't know how familiar you are with Chick-fil-A or the Cathy family, but within Chick-fil-A circles, it's a famous story that Truett, who founded Chick-fil-A, when he was like 6 years old, he would walk around his neighborhood with a little red wagon, and he would buy a 6-pack of Coke for 25 cents and sell them for 5 cents each. So every 6-pack, he's making a nickel. And something he said is, I always knew how to make a buck. That was like, since he was a kid, he always knew how to make a buck. I'm like, I feel like entrepreneurs are, tend to have a lot of similar stories like that, of like, even at a young age, you're like doing something like that, or you said, I doubled my income. Dude, that's great. That's definitely a unique one. No one has said that on the podcast yet. Um, that's a great one. You said a lot of your clients end up being referrals, and people come to you and say, I love that you mentioned that it's problems money can't solve, right? Because, money can't solve everything. It can solve a lot, as it turns out. But let me ask you this. What are like some of the biggest problems people come in with, or maybe what's the most common one that you see among your clients?
Well, you want the biggest or the most common? Because those are very different.
Ooh, let's do both. That's good. Let's start with biggest.
Sometimes when you've been coaching for a decade and you've helped over 800 people, you say, I've heard it all. And then you hear something, you're like, wow, yeah, I've never heard that one before. And I recently had a gentleman that was referred to me, and he lives in New Jersey, and I live in Boise, Idaho, which means I don't have a clue what life is like in New Jersey.
Me either.
Yeah. And his mother was stabbed to death by a burglar who had broken into their home, murdered her, and his sister was there at the time, and she was injured, not to the point of being killed, but she was hospitalized. And this man that did this to his mother and sister has been on trial now for over 5 years, and there's been no resolution. That they haven't, nothing, the sentencing hasn't had, nothing's complete.
Yeah.
And he owns a business, and he's successful, and the hatred that he has is killing him. And the counseling and the therapy and all the stuff that he's been trying, we can't get rid of it. And it's not a simple answer, because what he's experiencing right now isn't about what happened. It's about the cumulative weight of everything that has similarly happened that is now showing up as this straw. And by the way, it's a heavy straw that is breaking the camel's back. And so being able to help him identify, where did this start? What is it that's been building up over the years that is now breaking you? And how do we get you to a place, if he chooses, of healing and forgiveness, so that he can live his life without having this damning hatred that is just preventing him from being happy and continuing to serve and bless people's lives through the business that he runs.
That's tough. It sounds similar to, I see a counselor, and something we went through so my dad passed away in 2019, and something we've gone through is, I was really curious as to why he started to unpack like childhood stuff first, as I'm like, hey, help me deal with like the trauma of losing a parent, and start with childhood stuff. And it kind of blew me away. I'm like, I'm very efficient to the point. I'm like, why are we wasting time on this? Let's just start to deal with my grief. And he's just trying to unpack like, hey, what was this relationship like? Because like, what are you grieving? Is there, anger from stuff that happened? Is it the missing joy of stuff that happened when you were a kid? And like, we did a lot of unpacking, but to your point, the event was the straw, right? There's like a lot more that went into it. It wasn't just that one thing that was like, that broke the camel's back, to your point.
Exactly.
I think that's a really traumatic example, but a good example. So that's biggest. What's most common?
Yeah, most common is what's going on either in the marriage or the relationship, right? Or the family.
Yeah.
Meaning I've got things that I know I can resolve. If this was a work issue, I'd have it taken care of. We'd have mediation. We'd figure it out. But, I can't be at home who I am at work.
Yeah.
Because first of all, these people are getting paid to resolve problems at work. And over here, you're not paying them to stay in relationship with you like you are at work.
That's right.
And so then they say, why is it that the things I do over here don't work over here? And it's because you're not sleeping with or paying them. It's not your spouse or your child. And so there's usually this powerful realization that comes where it's not about the differentiation between, work and home. It's I'm the common denominator. And what is it that I'm not bringing home that I have at work that if I could bring and be congruent, then we would be able to find resolution and really love and pour into each other like I do at work.
Yeah. And I mean, to your point, I think that's other business owners I talk to. We're all trying to figure this out, right? Of like, how do I do both well? Both are important. I mean, family's more important to me and most people I talk to. This is a good jumping off point. Let's talk about work-life balance, because that's, it's a buzzword. It's something everyone chases, but it's something that I don't know. I've even wondered, like, do you ever fully achieve it? Is there a perfect work-life balance? Like, what does that true balance look like to you?
Well, one of my great mentors for the last 11, 12 years of my life is Gary Keller. And I had an opportunity to coach at the highest level of that coaching company and be mentored with Gary as the head of that company. So a billionaire is a good mentor to have. And he wrote the book, The One Thing. Yeah. He and Jay Papasan wrote The One Thing. And in The One Thing, they share this myth about balance. And he says balance is bunk. There's no such thing as balance. Like, Jacob, I mean, you tell me right now, how are you doing as a father and a husband in this very second as we're recording this podcast?
Right this second?
Right
I'm not
this
being
second.
a dad or a husband.
You're not. Because you're all in
Yeah,
with me.
yeah.
You're producing some
Yep.
media that's going to bless some lives. And you're putting your wife, and you have one child right now, Chris.
Yeah, that's right.
And one on the way?
That's right.
Okay. So right now, you've set all that aside, and you're 100% present with me in the audience, trying to create something that's going to be a blessing. And so there's no balance happening right now. You are 100% out of balance. And so what you're doing is you're counterbalancing. And that's what we are really looking for, is how can I feel okay with saying no to what's going on at home so I can say yes to what's going on at work? And how can I be okay with saying no to everything going on in my business so I can say yes to everything that's going on at home? And if you can make that differentiation, then you don't ever have to feel like you're balancing ever again. That's the starting point.
That's good. Like, it's not 50-50. It's 100. And
Yes.
It's figuring out when to turn off, work Jacob is off. And now, I'm husband and dad Jacob. And that's interesting. I like that shift. What's like one, if someone's hearing this for the first time and they're like, I mean, I am, and it's like, wow, that's really cool. Like, what's one thing I can do this week to start doing that? What would you say?
Well, figure out what you really want. Most people don't know what they want at home and at work. And so they're chasing both. They never know when they've arrived. I told my wife last night, we got done, we were eating ice cream and watching The Office.
Great
and
combo.
It's like 9:30 at night, and we're done, and I'm just like, I can't even get off the couch. I'm so tired. And I said this to her. I said, you know what, honey? Here's what I want. Nothing else matters right now in my life besides these three things. Number one, I want to live in this house as long as we possibly can, until I can't get up the stairs and get in our bed. I love our home. I want to live in this house forever. She's like, okay, what's number two? I want to spend as much time with you for the rest of my life as I possibly can. She's like, this is great. I'm in. She said, then what's number three? I said, number three, I just want to be as good of a dad as my dad was. In our 20s, if you're having children or thinking about having children, we often we want to be better than and fix all the mistakes that our parents made on us. And then in our 30s, we realize that our parents were actually pretty good. And as I'm getting ready to go into my 40s this year, it's like, you know what? I just want to be as good. Because I turned out to be a pretty good human, and my 4 older siblings did too, and my parents have been married for 53 years. I just want to be as good as my dad. And so I said to her, that's it. If I don't ever write a #1 international best-selling book again, which I did once, I don't care. If I don't become a $1 million coach like Tony Robbins, I don't care. If I don't hit any business goals and I can live in our house forever and spend as much time with you and be as good of a dad as my dad is, that's what I want. And most people don't know what they want. And so when you have clarity on what you want at home and at work, then it's really easy to say no to anything that's pulling you away from what you want.
That's good. So this is something I read last year that really helped me. And Dan Sullivan and Ben Hardy wrote a book called 10X is Better Than 2X. And they wrote 2 more too. That one kind of sums up the trilogy. But that's something that stuck out to me was like never apologize for your wants. And you want what you want, but then you got to work for it. Like you have to align your life, work, business, whatever with. You can want what you want, but it's actually figuring out how to do it that's important. And to your point, it's like you've set up your business to help you accomplish those three things. Is that something you find is that A, people don't know what they want, and then B, they don't know how to align kind of with the work-life balance thing, like don't know how to align their life and work to make that happen?
Well, to answer the first question, is it that they don't know what they want? It was what you asked. And let me tell you what I've learned that is, I think, a differentiator from the way most self-help, personal growth and development, counseling, therapy, coaching works. So most of them will say, hey, a coach will say, tell me what you want and I'll help you get it. Well, I don't know what I want. Okay, well, I'll help you figure it out. Yeah. That's the way traditional coaching works. Traditional counseling and therapy says, bring me all the stuff you don't want. Tell me everything that's wrong, and we'll help you figure out how you got here so you don't repeat it again.
Yeah.
How do we heal the past so you can move forward in the future? And coaches say, I don't care about your past. Let's just talk about the future.
Yeah.
So what is it that you're moving away from? What is it that you don't want? And what are the values that you have built in your life because of what you're afraid of? Values are the unconscious stuff that determine the goals that we set for the present and the future, and therefore the habits that we form. But they're built on unconscious crap. It's that stuff that is really what we don't want. And so as a master practitioner of NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming, we cut through all that crap as quickly as we can. And we release the stuff that you don't want, and then all of a sudden you have new values. Things are important to you after a 24-hour period of time working with me. 5.5 hours within 24 hours, your values shift like that. Because we are rewiring what it is that you truly desire at a deep spiritual level of who you're being. Not what you desire or what you're doing, but who you're being. And once we can align who you're being, and you're no longer moving away from what you don't want, what you do want changes. Because your values are different, and you have different goals, and you create different habits. So that's how I approach an individual.
So once they figure that out of like, this is who I'm being, then what are some practical steps they can take to, okay, like for me, I'll just like some of my wants, very similar to you. I want to be like a loving and serving husband. The word I've used for dad is I want to be a very present dad, which is part of why I started this business is, I can have the freedom of my schedule and I want to be at everything, like there's a field trip. I want to go. We want to take her out of school to go do something fun one day. I want to be able to do that. And then, yeah, like I want a business that can basically fund that lifestyle. And I love what I do. I love helping other people win. For someone like me, under the business owner, how can I then align my work, life, business, self with who I'm becoming, who I'm being?
Well, are you willing to be vulnerable with your audience here and sit in the coaching hot seat?
Let's do it.
Okay, because if you're like, hey, no, I don't want to, like, hey, no one's gonna be like, oh my gosh, what a pansy. He won't.
No, let's do it.
Okay, so pick one of those. Tell me which one. What do you want, Jacob? Pick one.
You know what? Let's do dad. I feel like this is a practical one. A lot of parents.
You want to be a present dad.
That's right.
Okay, and this is going to sound repetitive to the listeners, and they're not going to be inside your brain and heart feeling and experiencing what you're experiencing. Yeah. And yet, I think they're going to get a quick sense. And I'm even going to type. I'm going to pretend like you're my actual client. I'm going to. There
you go.
I'm going to do this. Like, this is just real play.
Live demo here for Andrew.
Okay.
There you go.
Here we go. Why do you want to be I think I know why you want to be, but that's my own judgment. You tell me, why do you want to be a present dad for your children?
I love my children. I have one now, one on the way, but I'll use children. One, I love them. And like it to me, it came naturally. I would do anything for my kids. To me, I equate like being there and loving with being present, because time is the most valuable resource. I feel very strongly about that. And so I want to make sure that they are getting my time, because that is what I value, is like
why Jacob, why is time so valuable to you?
To me, it's not just a me thing. It's the great equalizer, right? Rich, poor, race, economic class, it doesn't matter. Like everybody's got 24 hours. So time is the great equalizer. I think you can see what someone values based on where they spend their time.
What was it that led you to that? That value of time as a great equalizer. How did you get there? How did that become so important to you?
Good question. I think one, it came from, to your point earlier, like I've seen times where when people didn't value my time, even little things, late to meetings, missed meetings, whatever, last minute cancellations, I'm like, oh, you didn't care about that enough to like make it a priority. I'll say on the positive side too, both my parents were extremely present. My parents stayed married for, up until my dad passed away. My dad had a job that kept him very busy during some seasons, but he was as present as he could possibly be outside of work. So I remember like seasons of long story short, he worked for a church and like during Christmas, it was very busy. But I remember like any sport I played, he was always coaching, always. Where it's like when it was outside of work, he was there and present every game, every practice, both my parents. And so I had very present parents, and I've then observed other parents not be present. I'm like, man, I'm glad mine were there. Like that made me feel special as a kid. So I think it comes from seeing it done not well, seeing it done well, and appreciating it being done well.
That's beautiful. And why is it that you want to be one of those parents that does it well?
One, I think it's a parent thing, right? If you want better for your kids than you had, and I had great parents and a great
Okay, stop.
Go ahead.
Now, I wouldn't do this if we were actually in a coaching session, but
Yeah.
I want your listeners to hear what you just said. I want my children to have something better than what I had, and what I had was pretty dang good.
Yeah.
Now, let's be real vulnerable. I mean, come on, man, we're doing this. How old are you,
Yeah.
Jacob?
I'm 28.
And if your listeners were listening, what did I say? If we're having children in our 20s, what is it that we say we want for our children?
You already said it better. Yeah.
We want better, and you actually just said it, and I wasn't even like.
Funny. I went there.
It is funny.
Yeah.
And Jacob, and I'm speaking as a 39-year-old man who has a daughter turning 17 this month, and a 2-year-old, and 5 in between. I've got 7 children. And as I go into my 40s, what I realize as I'm talking to my dad on the phone last night, and he's asking me about my daughter's tennis match for a 1 minute and 37-second conversation.
Yeah.
I realize my father is not just present with me as his child, but he's present with one of his 30-plus grandchildren, wanting to know how her tennis match went because he wasn't able to be there because he was taking care of another grandchild.
Right.
How did you get better than that?
Yeah. That's, again,
honestly,
like said, pretty dang good.
I just realized I don't have to move away from my fears of making some of those small, because I was so blessed like you. I mean, I didn't have traumatic childhood events. My dad was very present, and we did all the family vacations, and he was home for dinner at night and didn't work weekends. Like, I was very blessed. But there's still in my 20s and most of my 30s that fear of what if I make some of the mistakes that my dad made, and then my children have to go through some of the hell that I've gone through. And guess what? I'm learning here in this new decade of parenting, soon to be grandparenting in this next decade, that I'm so grateful for those mistakes that my dad made, because they allowed me to become the person that I am. And my children will become the people they need to be as they watch me ask for forgiveness for my mistakes. And if we can let go of anything that we're moving away from, whether it's fears, insecurities, unnecessary sadness or anxiety or guilt or hurt, if we can move away from those to the point where we truly 100% leave them in the past, then we are free to move forward and create whatever we want in the future.
That's good. And that's so funny that I walked into that after you said it. That's so good. And that's a cool exercise too, I think. And to your point, I was trying to get to the root of like what I wanted. And
so practical application for the listener, because that's what you asked for. And then I went through this whole thing and you're like, I don't even know where we're going anymore, but I'll tell you. Let me tell you exactly where we're going. Practical application is keep asking the questions to identify what is it, if anything, that I'm moving away from, that I'm afraid of? Or is there anything back there that's pushing me rather than what's in front of me that's pulling me? Because what's in front of me that's pulling me is living in my home with my wife, spending as much time as I can, being as good of a father as my father is to me, rather than fear of losing my house because I can't make enough in my business, fear of not spending enough time with my wife and having her resent me someday, or fear of not being as good or better than my father. That I don't have that stuff, but I want to show you that those could be the things that I was moving away from if I hadn't done the deep work that I've done. And now I have clarity. So I know when to say yes and no to things at home or at work, so I can counterbalance my life in a way that I am truly living what's essential and what brings me peace of mind, allows my heart to feel like I'm connected, and I don't carry any guilt or shame at home or at work.
So something you work with clients on is finding their life mission. Is this kind of one of those exercises, or is that different?
Well, we have to do all of this work before we can identify the life mission, because most people are still, the mission of their life is survive, get out of pain, overcome fears, work through traumas, don't be depressed, get off medications, stop eating myself or drinking myself into the night. So we have to do this work before we talk about a life mission.
Yeah. So what is life mission, and how do you use that to help clients?
Yeah, so imagine this. You and I spend these 5 hours together over a 24-hour period, and we till up all of the weeds, all of the dead growth, and we have this beautiful tilled piece of dirt. And I say to you, what do you want to plant? And you're like, I don't know. I've never had so many options. And I say, you can plant anything. This is the most fertile soil. Most people at this point, they just start throwing stuff in the ground and seeing what grows, and they spend a couple years identifying the fruits and what are the things that I'm enjoying without playing a game of, well, is it salsa that I want? Or is it peach jam? As Stephen Covey said, we have to begin with the end in mind.
Yep.
And if we don't begin with the end in mind, then we just start planting random things trying to decide what we're making. So a life mission is like knowing, okay, I want to create the greatest salsa in all of Idaho. And I want to be able to give that away to 80 different families in my community as a Christmas gift. And these are the things that I need to grow. So now I have clarity on the goals and the habits that I need to be putting into this garden to get this desired result. And so this life mission is having clarity on what matters most to you at the end of your life. And for me, what matters most, even above those 3 things that I've already stated about my home, my wife, and being a father, is my life mission is to bless my brothers and sisters, who I believe to be God's children, to live a higher level of spiritual strength, and it's to influence as many as possible. And if I have stayed in my house and spent time with my wife and been a good father, and I haven't lived out that life mission, I have failed.
Yeah.
And if I live out my life mission and I haven't stayed in my home, that's okay. If I live out my life mission and didn't get to spend as much time with my wife, that's not okay. And if I've lived out my life mission and I'm not a father to my children as my father's been, that's not okay. So some of these are, like we can make, negotiations, but some of them are non-negotiable. And when we have a life mission that is overarching, it helps put everything else into perspective, like my home. Yes, it's important. And yet, if I just have my wife and kids, as Lion King, Timon and Pumbaa, home is where your rump rests. Yeah. We can make home in the woods if we need to.
Right.
As long as I'm living out my life mission.
I love that. So in 8th grade, I went to some student leadership conference called SLU, and someone from Franklin Covey came, and that was at the height of their planner being the planner.
Right.
In the, early 2000s. And anyway, that has stuck with me since, though, as far as one of those lifetime leadership lessons is begin with the end in mind. And it has changed the way I go about my work. There's even a workshop I offer now where same kind of thing, where you actually write out your eulogy. You talk about where do you want to be at the end? You write down on a piece of paper, here's my, life summary, basically. And you really start to see on one page what's important. Because are you putting on there how much money you made on your eulogy? Or are you talking about, those relationships you had? So I wrote on mine, again, we'll be transparent again. I had, first I was family, right? Hey, he was, I was a loving wife, loving husband to my wife, dad of X amount of kids, and loving grandparent, hopefully one day, God willing. And then I had stuff about like, even beyond business, to your point, I put on their influence, right? Like I love the ability to influence other people and help them win and influence young people. And so I'm like, that's the mission, right? And now I want to build a business that allows me to do that and,
Right.
and a life that allows me to do that, right? So I love that of having a mission that is tied with this idea of beginning with the end in mind. I think that's one of the best leadership lessons ever. That's why that's still a best-selling book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I'll always plug that book. He can keep selling millions of copies of that one. That's a great one. Andrew, we've talked about several things today. We did a live coaching session on here with me. So thank you for doing that. Like I got some free coaching, and hopefully everyone else can see what a coaching session with you would look like. I hope that was helpful. But if there's one takeaway from our conversation today that people could say, you know what, I got this one thing, what would it be?
When all is said and done, if you're wondering what you should be doing or what your mission is, or if you're moving away from or toward appropriate goals or balance of life, blah, 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 go out and serve somebody. You want to find out who you are and what you were meant to do on this planet, why you were put here at this time, at this place, go out and serve somebody. And as Jesus said, whoever loses their life for my sake shall find it. And even if you're not doing it for the name of Jesus or God himself, you're just doing it for humanity, or even if you're doing it selfishly because you want to find yourself, go out and serve somebody. And you'll be shocked what shows up for you about you.
I love that. Go out and serve somebody. Andrew, where can people connect with you, work with you, get your international best-selling book? Where can people do that?
Yeah, so, wherever you want. LinkedIn's great. Just go find Andrew. L is my middle name. Lee, it's my mom's maiden name, and I always keep the L in there to give credit to the 50% DNA and the spiritual upbringing that she and her family had provided in my being who I am. So you can find me on LinkedIn. You can go to andrewlanderson.com. My book's on Amazon. Wherever you want, just go to Google.
What's the book about?
So the book is called Strength of the Oak, Strength of the Willow, How to Find Courage and Compassion in a Turbulent World. It's a little bit of my story and the stories of those that I've coached over the past decade or so, and the principles that have helped us ground ourselves in courage and compassion, as well as give out the fruits that come from being grounded in a life mission. It's a beautiful piece of work that I never thought I'd write, that God called me to write, and it's a blessing to be able to share with others.
That's amazing. I'll encourage everyone to go get the book. Go connect with Andrew on LinkedIn, andrewlanderson.com. Andrew, thank you so much for doing the podcast today. I know I got a lot out of it. And thank you to everyone for listening and watching this episode of the Waves Business Coaching Podcast. Take care.
Thank you, Jacob, and thank you to your listeners as well. It's a blessing to be with you.
Thank you.